very important conversation with 6 community leaders in the field of mental health. Our board member, Jill Steiner, is going to MC today's conversation, and she will introduce our special guest. But first we want to thank our sponsors and partners, and that includes WMAY, WUIS, the Audiovisual Department of the Mayor's Office, and we also thank the Mayor for being here today. I don't see you, but I know you're here. Hiding back there. Thank you for being here today. And we also would like to thank our coffee sponsor, which is Fletcher Farrar. Let's give them all a hand. As you know, all of our programs are free and open to the public, but we sincerely appreciate your support through membership. Dues of $40 for this fiscal year begins July 1st. So our treasurer, Chris Atchison, is somewhere in the back, and he'd be very happy to take your New Year's dues today, either cash, check, or credit card. And finally, we are a nonpartisan organization. We're all volunteers here. We're dedicated to bringing you very timely topics to assist you in thinking about what's going on in your community. We do not tell you what to think. We tell you what to think about. And so with that, I also have to say we are not responsible for any remarks or opinions shared by any of our guests. So now, Jill, let's get started.
Good morning. The community conversation about mental health continues today. The Citizens Club thanks you and the panel members and their organizations for being a part of morning's conversation. Today, we hope you leave here with a broadened perspective of mental health and mental well-being. Our panelists today are Lauren Yogerst with Memorial Behavioral Health, Deputy Chief Josh Strunkel with Springfield Police Department, Dr. Chris McDowell with the SIU School of Medicine, Emergency Medicine, and he's dressed to go to work, so he'll cut out later. John Ridley is the Sangamon County and Menard County Deputy Department of Public Health. Dr. Krishna Taneja is with SIU School of Medicine, the Department of Psychology. And Brian, I just practiced it too. Wojcicki. He's here to represent and share with us some of the actions that are going on with Massey Commission. So just a quick note, if you do the math, I have 6 panelists, 60 minutes, information sharing, Q&A, and a call to act and engage. So I ask for your grace from you, our audience, and our panelists for times when I move us forward through the program. For your audience, you have an important role. The need for mental health support and resources is not someone else. It is not them. It is us. Meeting the need as an individual starts with listening and empathy. Put aside the belief that it is just pull yourself up by the bootstraps, get over it, move on, or it's just that generation. Denial and platitudes cost lives. A mindset that some might find helpful as you listen to the information today and as you learn more about this is to think about yourself as a crossing guard. You are watchful, you are friendly, you are trusted, and you know how to direct someone to safety. You're aware of what's going on around you, those passing by and those you greet by name. Or maybe today you see yourself. The subject matter we cover today may trigger feelings of stress and trauma. Please know that you are in a safe place, but excuse yourself if needed. Our goal today is to share what to watch for and how to guide those around you to move safely through their day. We're going to start our program today with a few of our panelists as they talk about day in the life stories of the need and response they see every day in the community. And we'll start with Deputy Chief.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you for having me here today to talk about law enforcement's response to individuals suffering from mental illness. For us in the city, this is a daily occurrence in the city of Springfield. Maybe not for, every officer on every day, but from our homeless outreach team to our neighborhood police officers and our patrol officers, someone is having this response every day and every shift. And because we're working 24/7 and we're always available, we're often the first call and the first to respond to these situations. So when our officers respond, and begin to interact with individuals, they have to assess those situations and then take appropriate action. During my 25-year career here with the police department, the training and resources haven't always been available to take what we would now consider, the appropriate action. Fortunately, as we're going to talk about today, a lot of the training and resources from crisis intervention team training to co-response have greatly improved and is making that decision easier, giving the officers the resources that they need to treat these individuals with the care that they need rather than incarceration. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to pass that mic down to Dr. McDowell, or he has one there. And he's just going to share the perspective a little bit about just the ER staff and how they interact.
Good morning. I want to thank you for being here today. This is, as you know, a very important topic in all of our lives. And I suspect that for you, like me, mental illness is something that's maybe impacted your own family. My extended family, we've certainly had some struggles with mental health, and I think it makes me more empathetic in my job as an emergency physician. I'm going to leave here a little bit early to go to my real job, and it's assured that I'm going to see somebody who's having a mental health challenge today during my shift. And my first job is to keep that patient safe. My next job is to keep all the staff safe. And my third job is to work with my colleagues to find the best resources to meet the needs for that patient. Hopefully, we're going to work together very collaboratively to get that done. Sometimes it's going to take a lot of patience and de-escalation on my part, the nursing team's part, to kind of reset the stage over and over that this is a safe place. We're here to help. But our job is really kind of the last line of defense. And it's fitting that I'm following the chief because we work very closely with our law enforcement colleagues as they bring patients to us to try to sort out what the right thing to do is. And as you've noticed in society, there are more of these challenges than we had in the past. And I'm just excited this morning to be a part of this conversation and to hear about all the resources that we have here and hopefully more coming in the future.
Thank you. And I'm going to ask John Ridley, he's with the Public Health, and just to talk about how he interacts and what their staff sees.
Yeah, thank you, Jill. It's a pleasure to be here this morning to speak about a very important subject. While the county health department doesn't have direct mental health services, we do have services that put our case managers in the homes of many people in the community that we can identify with, and the common thread in a lot of those families is some type of mental or behavioral issue. So while we don't have the services to primarily take care of those folks, having the referral patterns and the referral networks in the community, kind of pinning all these services together is critically important in having a delivery model in Sangamon County that works for the community.
Thank you. We're going to ask Dr. Krishna to kind of speak about how you might interact with it with the SAU School of Psychiatry.
So usually when somebody's coming to the ER or the hospital, you would end up seeing one of two people. You would either, after the ER doctors evaluate the person, we would call someone like Lauren, who used to be part of our psychiatry response team, who do the initial evaluation, and then it comes up to the psychiatrists to come in and do an evaluation. And what we are really trying to see is this person at an active or acute risk of harm to themselves or the community? Because when we're looking at a psychiatric admission, we're really trying to see, is this absolutely necessary? Because we understand that that takes away a lot of a person's rights from them. You're in a place where you may not have access to everything you usually do, but it might be absolutely necessary to keep you safe and get the treatment that you need and get connected with the resources that you need. Especially because wait lists for appointments with psychiatrists and therapists are months long. Currently, it's about 6 to 9 months before you can see a provider, and sometimes the quickest way is when you are being evaluated in an ER setting for an emergency. So part of our job is to see, do you really, really, really need this admission, Or is there something else that we can do for you? Are there any of these resources that are there in the community that might be a better fit? So when you walk into those doors, it doesn't always mean you're going to go and get admitted to the floor. It means we're going to try our very best to see how we can help you, whether that's medications, whether that's therapy, whether that's a community resource like case management, or other ways that we can help address mental health. And we'll get into more details of that as the presentation moves forward.
And that's a good segue to, I'm going to have Lauren come up. Lauren was very kind in Memorial Behavioral Health to put together a presentation to a group that I work with HR directors, and found that many of them did not know about 988. And the statistics say that 1 in 4 employees do not know that mental health benefits are available to them, included with their health care. So we have lots of ways to go at this. So I'm going to have Lauren step up. She's going to drive, as I call it.
Hello, good morning, everybody. Yeah, I hope you don't get tired of me talking to you. So yes, I'm with Memorial Behavioral Health. I currently work with our crisis system of care, but as Dr. Tanay just said, I have worked in the ER for about 10 years doing the psych response team. So I kind of live in that crisis system throughout my career. So first, I just kind of wanted to mention in general what mental health is. I think it's important to understand that mental health encompasses our whole range of how we're doing mentally, right? So it's not just something that you might be diagnosed with, it's not just a mental disorder, but it does include all of those good things that come along with our mental health, like learning coping skills, figuring out how we kind of live and work in the world, relationships, family, all of those things go into your mental health. Some of those big things include biological factors, social factors, and then economic and environmental factors, just to name a few. So for instance, someone that maybe has never been diagnosed with a mental health disorder might go through something really traumatic, let's say, or they might go through something kind of in the typical lifespan, losing a parent, losing a friend, going through a divorce, those sorts of life stressors, that can trigger, them to have some sort of mental health issue that they need to seek help for. So that is included, as well as those more biological factors that would be kind of what we traditionally think as maybe a mental health diagnosis, something brain chemistry wise, and Dr. Taneja can probably speak more to this, but a chemical imbalance, as people say, that would cause or trigger depression, schizophrenia, those sorts of things. Anything else you want to say, Dr. Taneja?
Yeah, so typically when we're seeing a mental health condition, there are multiple causes for it. It can be genetic, it can be triggered by some of the life stressors, or something else like substances, toxicity in the environment, climate change. It can be triggered by a variety of, it could be dietary interventions that are helpful with that or resulting in some of this. Primarily what we're seeing is that there's brain changes or genetic changes that could be contributing to some of these things, which is where in layman's terms we say it's a chemical imbalance, but it's actually a lot more complex than that, especially for each of those mental health conditions that we see.
And the final kind of piece that we look at, especially in crisis, is protective factors. So those are the things that are around a person that help to prevent a crisis, essentially. So in a crisis situation, we're looking to those, or we're looking for those in that person or with that person to help them to kind of see that there are some supports, some natural supports, or supports that we can help to assist them to find. So this would include, again, family members that might be close to them that can help, providers, so if they are connected already with a psychiatrist or a counselor, having good insight into their mental illness, that can be a protective factor. It can even be not having access to weapons. If they're in a crisis, that's a protective factor. So we're looking for things that can help to prevent something bad, essentially, from happening in that crisis situation. So a part of kind of discussing mental health, I think that's so important in a setting like this, kind of to the general public, is that it helps to reduce mental health stigma. And stigma is something that I'm sure people have heard of as it relates to mental health, because it is something that I think hopefully is talked about on a larger scale. One of the ways that we see to help is definitely discussion, but then also how we talk about mental health. So instead of saying a mental patient or somebody that she's mentally ill, we want to put the person first. So a person with mental illness, or a person who's been diagnosed with mental illness, or a person that's been diagnosed with depression. We want to talk about someone that lives with or experiences bipolar, as opposed to she is bipolar or Charlie is bipolar. And then if there's any sort of survivor, we want to discuss survivor as opposed to victim of any sort of tragedy or anything like that. Sexual assault, we want to talk about the survivor aspect of that, because they are a survivor. And then a big one that I have even noticed changed in the media, which is nice to see, is discussing someone that has died by suicide as opposed to committed. There is a negative connotation to committed, and we want to just kind of change that to the cause of death was suicide. They died by suicide. And again, I think when we use language like this, it just helps to kind of let people know around you. Maybe you don't know what they're going through, but they hear you talk in a more kind of neutral way about mental health. They know hopefully that you're somebody that maybe they can come to if they need something, or if they want to talk to somebody, that you're kind of that safe person. Okay, so what does mental health crisis look like? Just a few points on this, and then I'm going to play a video from their own words. We talk a lot in the mental health field about how we can help people through the use of peers, what we call peers, and that is someone with lived experience. We find, and the literature finds, that people that have a lived experience either with substance abuse or their own mental health illness, or a family member that has struggled with a mental health disorder, that them helping those that are also going through those things tend to be the best way to kind of start that conversation with them. So people in a crisis may feel unsafe and powerless. They may feel out of control. Certainly they may be expressing thoughts of suicide or not wanting to be alive anymore, wanting to be dead. Psychosis, so not having that sense they are not in reality. They might be hallucinating, they might be seeing things, they might be talking to themselves, but they're actually talking to somebody that they see maybe, or that is talking to them. And then disorganization is kind of a bigger one that has more to do with like executive functioning. They're not able to function as they normally would be able to because of their mental illness. Anything else to add, Dr. Tasia?
Yeah, so in some of those situations, from a psychiatry standpoint, when somebody like that comes to the ER, our role is to see, again, like I said, are they able to care for themselves? Are they able to protect themselves? Are they at risk of harm to themselves or other people? And that's when we're looking at, do they need to be admitted? And there are times where we are unable to do so based off of the mental health law. The mental health law came up to protect the patient's rights, because there used to be a time in psychiatric history where people would be forced into commitment because somebody lied about their symptoms, or because they were getting tired of dealing with their partner who they were having a fight with. So because of that history, the laws have been written to really protect the patient's rights. And in that situation, we sometimes, from a clinical standpoint, whether we can or cannot admit somebody against their will really depends on the severity of their presentation, whether they know what's going on with them or not, and whether they are meeting one of these 4 criterias.
And just as a note too, as an example, so for as long as I have been kind of looking at our data with the psych response team, which is probably about 10 years I've gone back, we only admit between 30 and 35% of the people that come to the ER and see the psychiatric response team. If you're admitted to a psychiatric hospital from Springfield, though, you would see us. So that is the proportion of population that are being admitted. The rest of those folks are being provided, obviously, resources when they're discharged, and we'll talk about that more. But so just as an idea, that is the percentage. So it is fairly small. This is, again, just a video in their own words.
I was about 16 when I was diagnosed with depression. My doctors think that it stemmed from my parents divorcing and struggling with school, really.
It all started when my father died when I was at high school.
It all started in university during my final year.
It all started when I was 16. I came out of a relationship I was in at the time and I started purging and self-harming.
I first realised I had a mental health problem when I was 15. I was cutting myself every day and crying all the time.
Soon after the attack happened, I started to feel throes of anxiety, panic attacks started creeping in.
I first realised that I had a problem when I really wanted to stop all the things I was doing, but I just couldn't seem to stop no matter how badly I wanted to.
I was suffering from hallucinations, which at the time were really scary because I didn't know what was reality and what was my imagination.
At my worst, I felt like I was absolutely worthless, alienating and destructive, with no help of recovery.
I felt like I had this black cloud hanging constantly over my head, and it's just a feeling that stays with you and you can't seem to get away from it at all, and you feel completely alone.
I felt like this was going to be it forever.
I felt as though I'd never reach any of my ambitions or my goals.
I felt like I was in my own bubble, hearing muffled voices of people around me.
When I had my first proper mental breakdown, and I decided to run away from home.
I felt like the world would be better off without me.
My mental health problem means that I go through many highs and lows which I struggle to control.
Sometimes I just want to hide away.
I feel that I have to make everyone else happy and every day is a struggle, but I just remind myself that I'm strong.
My mental health problem means that sometimes the world can be a very scary, very dangerous and very dark place.
Everyday tasks can become the most mammoth missions that seem like you're never going to be able to do them.
My mental health problem means that life is hard.
The hardest thing about having a mental health problem is people not realising that there's something wrong with you and that you can be really ill even if you look absolutely fine. I think especially having an eating disorder, people assume that you're going to look a certain way or be a certain size or a shape, or they imagine certain stereotypes that aren't necessarily true.
Like the social, and in my case, like the cultural stigma associated with it.
If I'm having a bad day, no matter how small it is, it feels like the whole world's crashing in on me and things just keep getting worse.
Just trying to get the people around me to understand what I'm going through when they haven't gone through something like me is probably the hardest thing.
Social situations in particular can be really difficult. I sometimes can't commit to what we'd call sort of normal everyday activities.
The word schizo, I think it has a lot of stigma attached to it. I really don't like it.
What really reassured me was knowing that there are so many other people out there who've got the same diagnosis as me and that I'm not alone.
Having my 2 rescue dogs to look after and to take care of, because I know that they need me around and they're always happy to see me. So no matter how bad my day is or how awful everything seems to be, I know that they need me and they always make me smile.
Having such a great network of friends, family, and people who are out there who can help.
I'd look at how far I've come and everything that I'd gone through and realise that I am still standing.
It really helps when my friends treat me the way that they did 6 years ago before this all started. I was that happy, laid-back person, and that's the person that I want to be and aspire to be again.
It really helps me when people just treat me normally.
I'd like people to treat me like you would your own mother, I guess. I think that's a good way to treat people.
I don't want people to tiptoe around me.
I would like people to treat me like any other normal person, but also just to be a bit more sensitive around me, not to be stigmatised, depression and everything, and telling me to cheer up and everything.
I wish I'd known how much I was going to grow and learn as I grew up and grew older. I wish I'd known how much therapy was going to help me and how much I was going to gain from that. And I wish I'd known that it was possible to meet people who would love me for all of me, including my mental illness.
That I didn't have to feel so alone and that there was a lot of support out there.
That there are people out there and organisations that can help me.
I don't regret having mental health problems because it has made me who I am today.
I wish I'd known just how supportive people can be once you tell them what you're going through.
People are accepting. They're not going to walk down the street and cry, "You mental case." They're not going to, they're not going to do anything like that. Everyone's incredibly understanding. And if they're not, them.
So the best piece of advice I'd have to give would be just getting over that initial fear of coming out to people about your condition, because once you talk about it, it really does help.
The best piece of advice I ever got was to just focus on today, because you can't change what's happened in the past, and there's honestly no real way of predicting what's going to happen in the future.
I know it's hard, but be yourself and be brave, and you will recover.
Take each day as it comes, and even if that's too much, break it right down to just 5 minutes at a time. I find that really helps.
Just ask for help. Just make that step and ask anybody, and they will be supportive for you.
Everybody has scars. Some people have them in the mind and some people have them on legs like I do.
Just basically be yourself. That's simple enough, and what it might be a bit cliche, but I guess it's true.
It's okay to be mental, and that most people are, just not in the same way as you, but there are ways to get help.
Even if you think that things can't get better, that you've tried so many times and you've fed up and you've had enough of trying, things really can, and you can get better and you can recover. So don't give up on yourself.
So yeah, I just like to show this because I again, just in their own words is very important. And also just to hear how important it is for individuals that are maybe struggling, just to have somebody that listens and just be there with them can help. Okay, so yeah, warning signs of suicide, looking for the facts, FACTS. Definitely, if someone is expressing to you different feelings of hopelessness, if they're mentioning things like, I don't feel like I have any purpose, I don't feel like my life is worth living, those sorts of statements are going to be ones that you want to look for and ask about. Just kind of inquire, what do you mean by that? Do you want to talk more about that? If they don't feel open to talk about it, just letting them know that you're available to have them talk about it. If you are increasingly concerned, just to continue to check on that person. And keep in mind, not just having one of these things means that someone is thinking about suicide. But if you're seeing kind of a number of these items or things that are making you feel concerned about someone, that's when you kind of want to pay attention and ask more. Asking someone directly the question, are you thinking about suicide? Are you thinking about wanting to die? It does not make them more likely to start thinking about it at that point if they're not thinking about it, but asking that direct question, again, allows them to tell you yes or no. And sometimes saying to someone, I'm suicidal or I want to kill myself, that could be a very difficult thing to say, right? I mean, it's not a natural thing for people to say, even if they're thinking it. So having that question asked sometimes is the reason that someone can open up. So a direct question is always preferred. That's what we want. Actions include impulsiveness, self-harm, certainly if they're harming themselves. But again, keep in mind that not all self-harm means that someone wants to actually kill themselves. That can be a part of different mental health diagnoses, depression, different things. Increased drug and alcohol use, giving away possessions. If someone is going through all their things and giving away all of their most valued and prized possessions, that might be something that you want to ask about again. Large changes in behavior, so very marked differences in their demeanor, their mood, how they're interacting with the world. If they haven't come out of their house in 2 weeks, that might be a time that you want to check on them and make sure they're okay. Obviously, specific threats, if they're making actual threats to kill themselves or if they have some sort of plan to kill themselves that they're talking to you about, that's when you want to definitely involve professionals. And then life changes, as I kind of mentioned before, can be a stressor that increases risk. So in that process, this is something that goes into a crisis assessment. This is called the Columbia Suicide Severity Rating Scale. This is a documented and researched, studied, evidence-based tool that is used widely throughout the United States. Every single person that comes into any of the memorial ERs does get this rating scale asked to them, basically. Every single person, regardless of what they're there for. That can sometimes trigger the psych response team to then do an evaluation, depending on how that person answers the questions, even if they're not there for a medical reason. After they're medically cleared, they might also then speak with us. But this can also be used by anyone, essentially. So because it is so direct, again, it is pretty user-friendly. So you basically just go through each question one by one. The first one, have you ever wished you were dead or wished you could go to sleep and not wake up? So again, asking about that, do you not want to be alive anymore? So you ask those first two questions. If yes to either of them, you ask 3, 4, and 5, or 3, 4, 5, and 6. If no, you can skip to number 6. And they keep going on and getting more specific. 3 is, have you ever been thinking about how you might do this? So now we're asking about, do you have a plan? Have you ever thought about a plan? Have you had these thoughts and had some intention on acting on them? So the intent, do you intend to act? And then have you ever started or worked out how you would do that? So do you have a plan, you have intention, and you're also, I'm looking for the means to do this. So we're talking about means there. And then the final one is just, have you ever done anything in the past or started to do anything, prepared to do anything that would end your life? So depending on how they rate, if they mark yes to 4, they're going to be high risk. If they mark only yes to 3 and no to the rest, they'll be a moderate risk. And then you can go down here and kind of see what response is necessary. So yes to 2 or 3, seek behavioral health care for further evaluation. That might include calling like the mobile crisis team, which I'll talk about. If 4, 5, or 6 are yes, we probably need immediate help. So we might need, again, the mobile crisis, but if they're actively thinking of a suicide plan, we might need to go just straight to the ER. So then what to do next? This is a card that Jill provided on your seats. So 211, for those that aren't aware, it's a number much like any of the other hotlines that you can call to get additional resources in your community. It can be called by anyone for any reason, and they can help to link you with those services and resources. 988 is the National Suicide and Crisis and Suicide Prevention Line. And I have a slide for that too I'll talk about. But that is a 24-hour hotline you can call anytime if you're struggling with any thoughts of suicide or you just need emotional support and want to talk to somebody about how you're feeling. And then of course 911. I think we all know when to use 911. So 988 has been around since 2022. It did have a longer number. We have had a crisis and suicide hotline for a while, but in 2022, nationally, it was changed to 988, which is helpful to get people to remember what the number is, essentially. You can call, you can chat, and you can text. Any of those services are available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The chat, interestingly, I just was in a call on this, and I didn't know a lot about how the chat worked, but it is actually one chat at a time. So the person that is chatting with the individual that's chatting in, they are completely focused on that one person. They are not doing multiple chats. They're really there to help that person. They talked about that there can be some delays, so it does make that kind of part of it a little bit harder, because if someone is at school or at work and they're chatting, they may have to kind of come and go from it. But it is one person that they're working through. Obviously, when you call, you're only going to be the only caller that's talking to that 988 dispatcher. A universal entry point, throughout the whole United States. A positive recently is that it did become geolocated. So when it first started, it located you based on your area code. So if you had an out-of-state phone, maybe you moved, it would locate you and send you to Springfield if you had 217 or the surrounding areas. Now it geolocates. The three major phone companies, T-Mobile, Verizon, and AT&T, have now all come on board with the technology to geolocate. So then that links that person based on where they are physically, and it can improve the type of resources that they have available to provide, because they'll know more about what's available close to them. Callers do remain anonymous. However, if there is something that comes up that is more of a risk, they will start to ask more questions about where they are, their phone number, things like that, to hopefully, if they need to intervene or call mobile crisis or 911, that they would have a location to send those teams to if they need to. And you can call for anybody. You don't have to just call for yourself. You can call for a family member. They will provide information, obviously resources, if that person is not there. So then moving into mobile crisis, we work with 988. Mobile crisis is a statewide initiative. It is grant funded through the state of Illinois. But it is a team locally, so it's run through Memorial Behavioral Health. We have a team that runs 24/7, every day, all night. A team of behavioral health clinicians and peers trained in crisis intervention. They provide face-to-face for the most part, but also can provide telehealth or over-the-phone assessments, crisis intervention to individuals in all 8 counties that we serve. So we are not just in Sangamon County. It can be definitely an alternative to the emergency department. So if somebody is having kind of those thoughts of not wanting to be alive, or maybe they do even have a plan, but they don't want to act on it, they would be able to call us. We could come out, do an assessment with them, talk with them, figure out, if they're safe to stay home. And if they are, then we would work on a safety plan, and we would work on further resources for them to be able to continue to maintain in their house or wherever they are. All ages, any payer source, we do not ask about insurance, so we will see anyone. That is our specific number, and again, 24/7, 365. I do have some flyers in the back too that have like our actual flyer and then just some additional information from MBH, so please take that if you need to. And then Core, Deputy Chief.
Give Lauren a little break from talking, let her get a drink. So co-response really began for the Springfield Police Department when you talk about mental health, response to mental health incidents. In the early 2000s, we started training our officers in crisis intervention team training. And that's a 40-hour course where they learn about different diagnoses, different medications. There are individuals with lived experience who come in and are a part of the training. So they get real scenario training with those individuals. I went through that training back in about 2004. It was really great training. It's very difficult to get an entire department trained in that. And that was really not the goal of the program. It was to get enough officers trained so that when you were having incidents, hopefully you would have a CIT officer available who could respond. Now, that training, there is an 8-hour kind of introductory training that is given to every police officer in the state as part of the basic training program. For the Springfield Police Department, that really grew into some of our neighborhood police officers working with Memorial Behavioral Health saying, hey, you're treating these individuals, we're in contact with these individuals, let's start working together. And hey, there's some individuals who maybe haven't been coming to their appointments. Can you help me find them? As law enforcement, we tend to know where people are. We tend to know how to locate individuals. And so someone from Memorial Behavioral Health would get in a car with one of our neighborhood police officers, and they would go out and specifically go looking for individuals who they were already receiving treatment and just hadn't been getting into that treatment. That developed into a grant that we submitted for federal money, and that is where our co-responder program really began. And now we have behavioral health workers riding with Springfield police officers responding to individuals in crisis. As law enforcement, while we are that first call, we recognize that we are not always the right tool. And this was a major step, putting social workers and behavioral health care workers in a car with a police officer to give them that tool. The training was great. We receive a lot of training, and we are constantly adjusting our training and our policies, but having someone in the car, this is what they went to school for. They spent a lot of time training for this, and they are the right tool to address these individuals. It was not, initially when you say, hey, I'm going to put someone else in the car with you and they're going to ride around with you all day, that's like having someone come sit in your office with you every day and watch everything you do. And it was, initially it was, hey, I'm not sure I want that. It is very well received now by our officers. They see this as a resource. They see the help that they are getting on these calls, and they're learning from the healthcare workers so that the next time they run into an individual who's having a similar incident, they know how to react, for that time when that healthcare worker is not in the car with them. Hey, I heard you ask this question. I saw how you dealt with this. I know how to do that next time. The big piece, though, as patrol officers, because, we're dealing with this today, and then tomorrow it's a whole new set of calls, right? I get a whole different set of problems to deal with the next day. A key part of having these healthcare workers in the car is they are able to follow up. They're able to casework these individuals and make sure, hey, are they going to their appointments? Are they not? What other help do they need? What other resources do they need? And so that's been very beneficial. The co-response, social workers riding with police officers, is really just one part of what the Springfield Police Department is doing. We have state grants as well that we have been using to build up capacity in our community and provide that casework proactively to individuals, so we're not waiting until they're in a crisis, but let's get to them earlier. We currently have a social worker on staff with the city who works with our homeless outreach team, and they are expanding that. As part of the budget, they're adding 2 additional ones to that group, and we're very proactive in this and trying to get individuals the help that they need. We're very resource rich here in Springfield, so getting them to those resources so that we don't have to deal with them in crisis is really a goal. Thank you.
Thanks. And just two other points that Deputy Chief made me think of. Yes, the follow-up. So I didn't mention that. With Mobile Crisis, every single person that is seen by Mobile Crisis, as well as our psych response team and all of our ERs, they get a follow-up call within 48 hours of the presentation. So from when we saw them, we are trying to follow up within 48 hours to make sure they understood what was discussed, the safety plan that we talked about, the resources that we provided. Did you lose that? Do you need it again? How are you doing now? Can we come out? Do you need another? Do you want us to come out and talk to you again? Whatever the case is. So we are trying to have that follow up as consistently as possible. And again, just trying to get people to understand and know that they can come to our office as well to get those longer term services. So hopefully we can keep them out of crisis. The other thing is that, yes, we work on the other side of that, so that relationship building with SPD has been, for us as well, a really positive thing. And I think if you ask any of our MCR workers, I think their favorite days are usually getting to go with our co-responders. So it's been a really positive experience, I think, for us. And we also work closely with the social worker that they have on staff as well, sharing resources for different people. And then just really quickly, CESA kind of goes into this as well. CESA, Community Emergency Support and Services Act. This is a law that was signed by Governor Pritzker in 2021. It has been in process, essentially. The state has been kind of on this journey to figure out how to implement this law up until this point, and they're still continuing to work on it. So essentially, this law says that 911 operators, centers, if they have a mental health call to that 911 dispatch, they need to seek the appropriate mental health response for that mental health call. It has involved them coming up with a risk tier system essentially, that depending on how that caller is answering questions to them, that they would respond in a certain way. So that includes the first level, which is what we're on right now, is just someone that is calling, again, with that kind of vague suicidal ideation maybe. They don't have a plan, they don't have intent, they don't have means, but they're saying, you know, I don't want to live anymore, I need somebody to talk to. That call is being directly transferred after 911 does their whole thing, but that call then gets transferred to 988, and 988 does their thing and is usually able to resolve the call. I didn't say before, 988 has about a 93% call resolution rate, so that means 93% of their calls are resolved over the phone. So they don't need to call anyone else, they don't need to call mobile crisis, they don't need to get the person to 911 on 93% of their calls, which is a large number, obviously. So that is still happening. So these calls that we're seeing transferred from 911 to 988, they are also being able to resolve those level 1 calls. If they can't, though, then that call would be directly transferred to the mobile crisis team that's in the area that they are, which again, that geolocation was integral to this. So they are transferring that call, and then mobile crisis just goes immediately to respond in person to that caller. There are going to be more steps. Right now we're in a pilot, and that pilot does currently cover Sangamon and Morgan County, and then we have one in Christian as well that Memorial is involved with. We have not gotten any calls transferred to mobile crisis, but as I said, they have been transferred to 988, so it is working, but it's just not needing to go to that final step. There are going to be more steps to the pilot that we don't know about yet, because that is something that the state kind of directs. But that's just something else that the community is involved in and Memorial is involved in, so I wanted to mention it. And this, just kind of to wrap up, these are our outpatient services that are available. Individual therapy for child and adults, case management. The PATH program is a program that works with homeless individuals that also have a mental health diagnosis. IPS, Individual Placement and Support, is a program that works with individuals that are needing help with job placement, working on resumes, working on interview skills, things like that. First Episode Psychosis is another state-funded grant from 14 to 40. If someone is presenting for the first time within 18 months of that presentation with psychosis, we can get them into this program, and it just has kind of quicker access to psychiatry, counseling, and case management. Yeah. Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. We have. You mean the QR code thing? And then just quickly, our walk-in times are on there. Anybody can walk in Monday through Friday, anyone at all. And then Dr. Tanisha, do you want to go over additional?
Sure. So we spoke a lot about the acute management, right? But there's also pre-management and post-management of certain things. So when someone's not in a crisis, how do I prevent them from getting to that point of crisis? And what do I do when the crisis has passed, and what resources do we have? I'm going to focus on the post right now, and then we'll talk about the pre in a little bit. When it comes to the crisis has passed, what resources do I have and where can people go, especially if the wait lists are that long? What else can I do that's beyond psychiatric and therapy care? So part of this is we have several psychiatric offices that you can go to within the community. There is Memorial Behavioral Health, there is Memorial Physician Services, there's SIU Psychiatry, there's Vine Street Clinic. For psychiatry, you don't need a referral from your primary care doctor or any other physician. Any physician can make a referral to your psychiatrist, but you can also just pick up the phone, call the office that you want to go to and the place that takes your insurance, and set up an appointment yourself. That is the same thing for therapy. There is a wonderful online directory called psychologytoday.com, which has most providers in your locality listed, and this is worldwide, so not worldwide, countrywide. So you can put in your zip code, you can put in specific requirements of, do you want a male, female, gender neutral person, culture, race-based, anything something that is important because a large part of choosing the right therapist is who do you connect with. It's like any other relationship you have in your life, you need to be able to connect with that person. So all of those things do become important when you're choosing someone or what modality you're using. So this online directory lets you kind of explore that and reach out to therapists individually. Some of the other things that we have within the community is the Survivor Recovery Center. It is a grant-funded program that runs in the community, which is for victims or trauma survivors who have experienced a violent trauma in the last 3 years and they reside in Sangamon County. That is also a program that anybody can refer you to, or you can call yourself and contact them over there. We have a QR code over here that you can scan. The QR code is from an initiative that we've launched with SIU called Thrive, which stands for Trauma, Healing, Resilience in Volatile Environments. I will talk about that in a little bit. And because that focuses on that pre-part of how do we prevent people from getting into crisis, what do we do in crisis, and what do we do after. It's a more comprehensive program. I'll talk more about it later. But if you scan this code, you will go to one of our link trees, which has some of these resources listed over there, and some other things. The other part that I just want to focus on as we're talking about post-care is when somebody's having chronic stress or trauma, what's actually happening to people. Chronic stress or trauma and other mental health conditions can change your brain structure depending on what someone might have. It can change the way the cells in your brain and your nervous system connect with each other. It can change the hormones and the neurotransmitters that are there in your body to help you respond to that trauma or stressor. Sometimes what happens is your body gets stuck in those responses and it stores that trauma either as emotional memories or actually nervous system dysregulation with those hormones and neurotransmitters being stuck at a certain level. It can affect your gut and how your gut is responding to it, how you're digesting certain nutrients, how you're absorbing certain nutrients, the healthy bacteria that keeps everything going smoothly, amongst other things. Amongst the emotional and the psychological part and how you perceive the world, how you connect with other people, your beliefs, and how you're coping with any kind of stressor in your life. So a lot of the post part of it is you don't always need to focus on, the psychiatry and therapy appointment is months away, what do I do? There's a lot more you can do in between that. There's dietary interventions, there's improving your sleep, there is movement-based therapies, mind-body medicine or meditation. There's so many things that one can be involved in to start helping in those stages.
Thank you. John's going to speak about 708 really briefly, just so we have a concept of what this is.
Thank you. So, end of the program, but a very important piece here is we want to educate and be transparent with the community because that's critically important as we start developing our community mental health board. So, this may be a new term or a new concept to many of you. The 708 is related back to House Bill 708, and so that's kind of the short version of a community mental health board. It rolls off the tongue a little easier. Really what this is, to put in an analogy, is it's the United Way for mental and behavioral health, right? So the reason it's important and that everybody understands what this is and to be transparent about it, part of the funding from this, a great deal of it, is going to be a tax referendum. It's a very important tax referendum. It'll come around in the spring of 2026. So there's a commission in place right now, spearheaded by Mike Murphy, and Mike was here. He's our chamber president, and that group meets every month, and they're developing strategies on how to stand up this community mental health board. Some people look around the state and kind of do a little comparison county to county. If you do that and you look at the state and what counties have community mental health boards, Sangamon County is kind of the whole of the donut, right? It's something we should have had a long time, but we're putting that in place now. So it's a very important project. What this does is it gives the community resources and funds to help glue together some of these things that you've heard this morning, these different organizations and different businesses in the community that their primary focus is to deal with mental and behavioral health. As you know, that over the past many years, those services have struggled operationally to stay afloat, just because it's not billed in the same way as a typical service, health service, and we're playing a little bit of catch up there. So the Community Mental Health Board will raise those funds to keep those businesses and those services afloat, pin them together, and to have a stronger service in our community rather than have a host of good functioning silos. So a very important topic. You're going to hear more about it. You'll see more about it. Brian's been doing a lot of work on this as well. It's really important that you understand what it is and that you get an opportunity to ask questions. It's going to be voted on. Taxes are definitely something that's a very sensitive subject. We get it. There's a sliding scale that we use to determine how many, what the funds need to look like that we raise in the community, and that'll be done, in a very stewardly way. But this is a critically important service that we need to get launched in Sangamon County.
Thank you. So we just have really a few minutes. What we want to do is like 7:08, and then Krishna and Brian are going to make a few comments about things to put on your radar, to learn more, to watch more, to see how the community is moving forward. But we're going to stop for just a couple of minutes and see if there's any questions about the material that Lauren shared, or any questions for the chief in regards to that. I know. Good. Couple hands.
John Kierkestner, University of Illinois. I was reading a report recently that there is an increase in suicide rates for those 65 and older, and it feels like, especially with the audience here, maybe not for the people here, but for the people they know, is there something you can say, one of you that may know, what to look for or what to do?
I'm going to field that one, and you tell me if I'm wrong, but the age is not what you ask, what you look for is not going to be a factor necessarily. And the tool that you have to be able to have people help enter the 988 system and that open that door, that's really the best thing that you can do at this point. Other questions?
Cinda Klickna, I was interested in what you're doing with the schools. I think that video, as a former teacher, I think a lot of students would benefit from that. And have you really seen an increase in behavioral issues among our youth?
As part of a grant we received from the state of Illinois, we are funding memorial behavioral health workers in the high schools at District 186 and in the middle schools. They call them peace and mosaic rooms, and it's really a place where the students can go when they're feeling in crisis or feeling close to that so that they don't get into crisis. They work very closely with our school resource officers so that they can identify those individuals and get them help.
And I think that would just be an indication that there is an increased need, particularly with social media. We're going to take this one last question right here.
Thank you. My name is Joe, and I'm a homeless advocate in Springfield for the last 7 years. And everything all of you do, this is just wonderful that this is happening. But the question I would have is, all of these services that are available, you have homeless individuals or people that are mentally challenged walk into the doctor's office, the emergency rooms, dropped off by the police department. What about the people that don't know they have a mental illness? I've been to one of the clinics with a homeless individual, graduated from Harvard, and they asked him during the interview, what makes you think you have a situation that we can help you with? And he said, well, Joe told me I do. And so we walked right out. We couldn't, and I know when the police, I know they hold them for 72 hours and they're back on the streets. And I've dealt with case management for several years, Sarah Anderson, and it just doesn't, it seems like it's a small hole that we don't cover because they just don't know, and I just continue to see them on the streets.
I think that, that I'm going to have Lauren connect with you afterwards to be able to talk about that more. This today is an intro. As you can see, there's lots more to learn. I'm going to ask Krishna and Brian, you're going to shorten those and just talk really as you can about Thrive and what it is and what it looks for, and then Brian will take us and talk about the Massey Commission again.
Sure. So we talked about Thrive, which is an initiative we've launched through SIU. It's called Trauma, Healing, and Resilience in Volatile Environments. We are creating this as a comprehensive crisis response team for when there are community-wide tragedies that happen, like the 3 that have happened this past year, to work with the community, to work with the key stakeholders in the community to come up with a response to some of those things and provide immediate care, whether that is one-on-one therapy, group therapy, crisis interventions, education to families about how they can handle these things, coping skills education, and also to start working with the social determinants of health, such as being unhoused or access to food, access to safety, healthcare, all of those things, to keep people from kind of drowning in that river. So we are really looking at creating this as a community-wide program with our stakeholders, with the community members. So if you would like to be involved, if you already have programs, please come and connect with me, because the goal here is really collaboration and efficient use of our resources.
Okay. Brian?
A 1-minute summary of the last 8 months. So a little background, and then maybe I'll just highlight the gaps maybe we've seen. The background of who we've tried to focus on. I'm a commission member of Massey Commission, co-chair of Mental Health Work Group. Started with Police Department, thanks Deputy Chief, Department of Human Services, UIS, Behavioral Crisis Hub, who got contracted to roll out CESA through DHS, Sangamon County Central Dispatch, Chris Mueller and them are doing a great job. And they're working on a lot of the implementation and have frankly already been working on it long before that. Memorial Behavioral Health, Sangamon County Court Services and Probation, and actually next month we actually have Board of Education and District 186. So gaps that we've seen. I would say one of the biggest gaps are just basic, and a lot of the perspective is general members of the public, the non-medical, and largely general members of the public in need, the non-insurance. Lack of knowledge of resources. So a public facing for those in need, where can I get X, Y, or Z resource? It was tough. The best one that I've found, actually got a grant with DHS, Sangamon County Recovery-Oriented Services of Care, Sangamon County ROSC. They probably have the best comprehensive list of resources for those in need in our area. Another gap is limitations on resources and coordination. A small thing, but could be bigger, and it may be something Senator Turner just has to handle, is all of the various laws that are now handing out grants for more and more mental health services have some type of, and here's who's qualified to help. There maybe needs to be a review of, are we setting artificial limitations on who can actually go out with our law enforcement or others, based off of what our license is or is not, whether or not somebody who just basically has a lived experience can be qualified, and what does that qualification look like?
Right. So as you can see, I know, I'm so sorry.
One last one,
Okay.
because it's got to be noted, is continuity of care. It's the 65 to 90% who are not admitted. There has to be a better dialogue, because there's disagreement between the medical and the non-medical community on what is happening in those circumstances.
So as you can see, there's lots to be involved with and lots to learn. I thank you for your patience as we went a little bit over. I do want to thank you again. I just want to attest to the information and the tools of the shared work. At the YMCA, we see all of the community, and as an employer with over 350 employees ages 14 to 75, we have all the generations in our workplace. 988 was the most valuable tool we have. It is an entry point. It activates the system. It has saved lives. It provides proactive solutions and a needed safety net. The Columbia Protocol, which you have in your hands, we are sharing with you, has saved lives in our YMCA family. An employee who only saw one way forward is now thriving. The Mobile Response Unit through 988 has responded to our calls for help with positive outcomes. The Springfield Police Department, who's interacted with compassion when they called to assist us, and the County Health Department with their education and providing Narcan to our staff so we're ready to respond when an overdose crisis occurs. And Memorial Behavioral Health has walked and sat with us as we grieved together. As an organization and as individuals, we hope that you will normalize these key things when it comes to mental health and well-being. Do not judge, but actively listen with empathy. You don't have to be an expert. Be prepared to help and ask for help. Share concerns, feelings, and observations. Use the Columbia Protocol to ask direct questions and follow steps, and know those 3 numbers, 211, 911, and most importantly, 988. We are the crossing guards who direct those around us to 988 in hopes we don't have to call 911. As we close, I want you to join me in thanking these panelists as they and their organizations serve our community on the front lines. They face trauma themselves and tragedy themselves daily, but they all have the heart of a teacher in sharing with us today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jill, and thank you to the panel. You were absolutely wonderful, and we've all learned so much. And with that, I just want to close and say that our next meeting, July 25, will be our annual meeting. We'll be electing officers, and that will be here at 8 o'clock with coffee available at 7:30. Our topic is who's planning for Springfield's future, and how is that working out? So we hope you will come and join us for that. And again, thank you all for being here. Enjoy your day. Thank you.